So I think there's a gay sensibility to everything that I do, and though some of the poems that I write don't have gay content, I don't think they're any less gay because I, as the creator of my work, intentionally or unintentionally bring, my gay sensibility to it. And the start of my gay identity and my identity as a writer came about at the same time for me in my life. At the age of 16, immediately following the first time I had sex with a guy, I came home and wrote about it in my journal. And then a few days later, I read it to one of my best friends, Stephanie Recht. Clearly I wasn't ashamed or keeping secrets. And while reading it, she kept encouraging me. She's like, oh, that's so good, you should become a writer. And I thought it was a really good idea. And so that was the time that I really kind of identified as being gay, but also as a writer. And this moment, the first time I had sex with a guy, I kept going back to and mining poems from. And it was a pivotal experience in my life. And that was one of the reasons I kept writing about it. But I also wrote about it because it was a way of rewriting an uncomfortable experience for me. And the sex wasn't that great, and it was kind of awkward. And it was also, by rewriting it, it was a way of trying to make sense out of that experience. About 5 years ago, I was in an artist in residency program, and I wrote another poem about this guy. And though I liked the poem, I was also fascinated that 14 years later, I was still writing about this guy and still writing about that experience. So, with the collaborative help of artist and bookmaker Darren Klein, I compiled the writings about him and that experience into this chapbook, which is called Ignited. And that's actually a photo of him on the cover from his yearbook photo. And he actually doesn't know anything about this. So I placed the poems in the chapbook in order of when they were written, so the reader could see the progression of my writing style, as well as the evolution about my feelings about that first time, that first experience. So the chapbook starts off with a journal entry written the night of the event. So this is when I was 16. And though I would love to, I didn't edit it at all, which, so this is truly like my journal entry from December 4th, 1992. We were sitting in the condo parking lot behind the Clarkson 6 cinema, talking, and then I asked if I could kiss him. Who knows about my sexuality at this point? So we did, and I put my hand on his stomach. Then he goes straight to the buckle and had it off, fast. Then, for his, we're still kissing and both groping each other. He reclines and I suck him. He wasn't very big, I'm bigger. So, I'm going up and down, and my lips are so sore. And I tell him this, and he says, okay. And then I recline in my seat, and he goes down on me. Oh God, he was good. I held the back of his head, and then the side of his stubbled face. I got harder and was surprised when I came. He swallowed and kept going. Oh God, was him swallowing a turn on. He then comes up, wipes the side of his mouth, turn on. I go back down on him, and then jack him off for 50 seconds, and then he came. We kissed, and I liked, oh God, I can't believe I'm saying this out loud. All right, we kissed, and I liked the thought it was the same mouth that my dick was just in. He wiped up. I moved over to kiss him again, and he said, well, you get a hug. What the hell? I'm being blown off? Driving him home, we got a drink at McDonald's drive-thru. He paid. We talked, and he explained he was unsure. He said he'd call me tomorrow at 9:30, and then he said bye 3 times, a sign of discomfort. So then a few years later, I wrote this poem about that night, and it was called There Wasn't an Accident. I wonder how different that night would have been if I hadn't braked in time, if I had accidentally driven off that retention wall into the cold December water. Some part of me likes the romantic idea of us dying together as teenagers, trapped in the car, the first place we had sex, trapped with only our relationship dying. Yet, I pushed the brake, shifted the car out of reverse and into drive. I did die with you. Part of me died. You took it with you that night, carried that corpse long after you remembered who I was. This is another poem from that collection. It's called December 4th. Marked on my calendar, celebrated every year, a festivity those not close to me don't understand or think of as an oddity, a boasting and bragging of a sexual adventure. It is the anniversary of when I first had sex. 16 and in my mother's car, an older guy with deep red lips, my accomplice, who swallowed, and in that moment I felt accepted. I note the day because it is the closest thing to a gay conception date. There is no other marker or identifier. It was in that moment my life changed. It is in every moment that my life changes. But this one seemed different. A world opened to me, and I never thought of going back. I only thought of more. More times, more experiences, more men, and I got it all. I sought it out like a pirate with treasure map. I did it all. It felt like I did the entire city, and maybe in a way I did. It isn't really when I became gay. I know virgins who aren't any less gay, but is the date when the gates of gay sexual pleasure opened, when I became familiar with a man's touch. An elusive date, similar to the stray cat we found. We marked her birthday as the date she came to our house. It was impossible to gauge when she was conceived. All we knew is when she came home. And this poem is the last poem of the collection that was written 14 years after that event. It's called Michael, which actually is his real name. So, Michael. I know. And I do this repeatedly. It's a whole other story, but Michael. I can't name my lovers. Before all of this, there was Michael and his lips. How a world opened to me with his kiss. I pillaged and plowed the land of this new world. Before all of this, there was Michael and his lips. And when his hand touched my stomach, I thought I felt love. I pillaged and plowed the land of this new world. He was the first man I cried over. I thought I felt love. Kept seeking it through touch. He was the first man I cried over. We're really only burnt once. Kept seeking it through touch. I'd fuck my way to love. We're really only burnt once over Michael and his lips. I'd fuck my way to love. How a world opened to me with his kiss. We're really only burnt once. I can't name my lovers.